AI lies. Effectively, AI has no concept of truth. AI hallucinates. It's funny how we don't call them bugs, we call them hallucinations because they are not bugs, they are expected by design. I know there is a lot of companies that are getting creative saying we do AI. Great, that doesn't deliver value. That's not a product. So AI is a tool, and therefore, if you fail to define a clear, measurable problem that aligns with your business objectives for using AI, then you're gonna fail.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to Control Shifter, a podcast by Smart Dev and Vericel AI featuring voices that to control and drive the shift. Today's guest, Arnaud, is someone who lives and breathes AI strategy, not just from technical lens, but through the lens of responsible deployment at scale. He is the head of mobile sensing intelligence at Cambridge Mobile Telematics, where he's shaping data-driven innovation and AI adoption in real-world systems. Before that, he led AI Power Initiative at Wanderoo, Wayfair, and TripAdvisor. Arnaud, once again, thank you so much for joining us today. Before we start, do you have any message to our audience?
Not really. I'm just glad to be here.
Okay, so let's jump right in. To understand how you approach technology or AI today, we need to rewind a bit to the beginning of your career as an engineer and a builder. So your experience shed light on why pragmatism sits at the heart of your AI philosophy here. So how did your initial experience as an engineer and architect shape your perspective on AI adoption today?
So when I moved to the US, soon after college, once I was done with my military service, and I moved to Texas, actually. So I moved to Texas in Houston, and I worked for a couple of startups in Houston. So I stayed there for 8 years. And during that time, I remember on my first day, so I worked for this company that did security software. And I show up on my first day and say, well, the person that used to own the middleware component just left, and we need to do a new release, and it needs to happen today. I was like, okay, like I don't know anything about it. I guess it needs to happen. Let's make it happen. Right. So that was my first day. So I was like, okay, well, you do what you have to do, you figure it out, and you make it happen. And I think overall, my experience doing startups has been the same throughout my career, especially during my time as an engineer in Texas, because it's like, well, we do what we need to do to be able to deliver for the customer, to be able to deliver for the business. And, we do whatever it takes effectively to make that happen. Not in any like bad way. Just that we are proud of our work. We want to make sure we deliver good things and all that. But ultimately, there are plenty of things that we could do better. But ultimately, what's more important is that we deliver for our customers, for our business. For me, that stayed on, obviously, from now. Because what I learned very quickly is that you just have to get things done and deliver. That's what you do. That's what you're paid for. But yeah, it's great to have like a great system and it works very well and it's nice and clean and all that. And trust me, as an engineer, I really do care about that. But at the end of the day, you have to deliver for the business. And I think for me, I see AI exactly the same way. For me, AI is a tool. If AI can make me, my team, my customer more productive, then we should figure out how to use it so that we can deliver results faster. However, with any tool, right? There's a tendency in this industry to see any tool as the golden hammer, meaning that, oh yeah, crypto can do anything from you, and then before that, Web3 can do anything from you. We see these waves, and now we say, oh, AI can do anything for you, and maybe not. You never know where ultimately the dust will settle. But at the end of the day, right, at a minimum, you should approach it as a potential tool to explore and see what how best to incorporate that and how that can help getting you more productive, your customer more productive, and so on. And that's definitely something we're doing here at Cambridge Mobile Telematics is because ultimately Cambridge Mobile Telematics is an AI company. Like we collect telematics data, but the value of the company is not by gathering telematics data, is what insights we provide from the telematics data. It's all AI. So that's all AI related. So that makes it a very interesting company to work for. And the point there is that, well, we are used to, use AI in a way to provide more value for us internally, but also for our customers. And for me, that's why I care. Now,
Yep.
I think like any tool, it's not a golden hammer, but also we have to put the right safeguards around that. So, as brought a few times before, like AI can hallucinate, by design. So you have to be careful about that, how you use AI and potential issues with that. Yeah, there are obviously privacy concerns with AI. There are all these security concerns that are very real actually. So I think there is a way to make that happen. But ultimately the point is that AI is a tool, right? You don't do AI for the sake of doing AI. You do AI because AI will make your product better, will make your team better, will make your customer better.
Yep. Right. So we are tapping in a spot where we need to be careful when adopting these as well. And however, these two are very powerful and very potential for a business outcome. And when we adopting these, we should take into account both the opportunity and also the risk this would pose on the business, right? So, with a mindset that AI is a tool, let's zoom it out a bit. What is one challenge you consistently face when guiding AI adoption?
I think the main challenge is actually regarding people, employees, right? Because the adoption of AI has been polarizing in many companies. I've seen that across multiple companies at this point. Uh, because some people believe that AI is the next big thing, like the golden hammer that's going to increase productivity tenfold of every employee, and they want everyone to use it as much as possible because that's what they see coming down in the future, right? Some people fear AI and despise it.
Yep.
Actually, it's almost like hatred because for different reasons, like environmental impact, societal impact on the society, other kind of impact. Also the fact that, well, if you tell AI to do things, it means that ultimately you get trusty in doing those things. So AI
Mm-hmm.
does things for you that you used to have to do on your own. And now
Yeah.
if without AI, well, you lose that capability, like you delegate something that you had to learn and improve on and keep on doing. And now you tell, oh,
Mm-hmm.
AI will just do it for me. But then it means that you lose that expertise over time, right? So there is also that negative aspect, which is real. And then some people are curious, right? They play with it, they are open to its expansion, but they are kind of unsure how much it can really make them more effective. Right? There has been some
Mm-hmm.
controversy lately about, especially in software development, some people, like I mentioned, say, oh, it's 10x improvement.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a study recently that showed that for a control study on an open source project where some developers, there was a control group where some developers didn't use AI, some developers use AI. It's what was funny is that the developer that use AI say, oh, I'm being like 20% more effective with AI than if I didn't use AI. But when
Mm-hmm.
they measure the productivity, they actually saw that the software engineers not using AI were 20% more productive than the software engineers using AI, which is totally the opposite from the perception, even of the software developer that were using the tool. So, I mean, the point is that, well, who knows, right? The jury is still out, kind of thing. But, there is all these different camps of people. The camps that are like, yeah, AI is the future. We should definitely use it. The camps of, oh, let's not use AI. That's the next Terminator coming at us. or the client say, well, we're going to play with it, see what we can do and go from there, but not sure how much we gain. I'm more in the last camp, right? I'm more in the camp that we have to use it. It's a great tool. Let's see where it goes.
I see, I see. Well, it's pretty surprising that developers who use, as you mentioned, developer who use AI is less effective than the one who doesn't use,
Yeah,
right?
just
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So,
The interesting thing about that, in the tech industry, there is also that that shiny object, the next big thing, right? So, and if especially for software engineers, so software engineers, they're going, this is fantastic. Like, we should use it more. Like, it's always that, and pushing the companies to say, we need to do more of that. But AI is even more because I think not just because AI is a generic tool that can be used in all kind of Gen AI can be used in all kind of different ways, but also because I think from an investor standpoint, they expect that if the companies don't do AI, then it almost is as a strong signal that the companies are not innovating.
mhm,
It's almost an indirect indicator to say, oh, you don't use AI effectively. You must not be an innovating company. So I think there is also that, that way to kind of distinguish between, and also for companies, therefore, to show, no, we're
yeah,
using AI because they want to show that they are innovating. So it's not about AI for the sake of AI. It's more like, oh, that's the signal to tell us, oh, these companies, are actually innovating. But ultimately, for me, AI is a tool. I do believe that AI, because of its potential, everybody should be exposed to that, right? Because I remember when the internet was introduced.
mm,
That's my age. But when the internet was introduced, right, there are the people that were effectively using the internet and the people that didn't, and that
yeah,
created that gap, right,
correct.
between the people that can actually use the internet to look things up and people that didn't, and definitely they were left behind. And I do believe there is a potential for that happening with Gen AI as well. That there are people that are able to effectively use the tool, and I think they are going to flourish in the new world. And the people that don't want to use the tool and that cannot use the tool and are interested in use the tool, and there is a worry about them being left behind. So for my team in particular, I really want to get them exposed because no matter what happens with AI, I feel like I don't want to be in a place where my team is left behind. I think that's not the right thing, right? So that's not the right long-term outlook that I want for them and for the company.
I see. As you are a curious person, always seeking for a new sweet spot where AI could bring potential outcome, for example. But we have to admit that there's so many noises currently across media around us everywhere. So which guiding principles help you balance innovation speed and on the practical side, like is this feasible or not? This is suitable for the business outcome, the business goal or not? So how do you stay balanced between all these hype and the reality?
So I think it really depends on the company
Mm-hmm.
because it depends on the stage of the company, it depends on the type of company, the market of the company,
Mm-hmm.
and so on. So it's difficult to give like one answer. There are a couple of things that I think is important. I think it should be a win-win, and what I mean by that is that there needs to be a clear need for using AI. I just
Mm-hmm.
using AI for the sake of using. I remember the first things that like travel companies did, like we're going to put an AI chatbot on our website. Great, not very useful. Like some people say, oh yeah, use it once, it doesn't work very well, whatever. Like so, but it was I felt like it was like put a lipstick on the pig. Effectively, it's like, oh yeah, we're using AI. Look, we can show you, but it didn't really provide value. And so I think, the first things first is identify where value can come from using a tool like GenAI. I think that's the first step. So because there is a strong incentive at this point to say, okay, let's make that successful because not just as we need to use AI, let's use AI, but more like there is this need where we believe we can reduce costs or improve retention or engagement or whatever metric it is. There is a strong metric you can go after and then you start using AI as a tool, just like you'll do for other things that you experiment with. And then you have this clear set of metrics you can check against. Am I making progress? It's good. Goes back to the, I'm perceiving that I'm 3% faster, and even so you're not, because you're not actually measuring that, but let's measure it, right? And see, well, okay, can give us a 1.5x improvement? Can it give us a 10x improvement? Like be able to measure that effectively. I think it's important, but also having that specific business need that you believe can really be a thing. The other thing too is that it's easy for people to say, oh, well, if we innovate, we cannot be safe. And I totally disagree with that. For me, it's like innovation is not against safety. I think there is a way to allow innovation in a safe manner. And I think it's more, for me, what I like is when safety and compliance are built into what employees use, so that it's not so that it's easy for employee to do the right thing, because all the tools they're using are already like safe and compliant from that standpoint. And so that's something that CMT will really care about, right? Is making sure that, yes, we all you to innovate. Yes, you have access to all kinds of tools, but all these tools have been properly vetted in a way and properly integrated in a way, at least so that we believe that, they are safe to use in that standpoint. And that way, it's less of the employee. It's more the fact that you have this playground that you can easily work with. That's already kind of safe to use in the first place. So that employees then can focus on the innovation part, less on the safety part.
Yeah, I think that we will have a section after we're gonna dive deep into these things. And yeah, I believe those safeguard and some governance framework, safety framework is a thing that still have not yet been discussed much, and maybe put a lot of attention much, like the opportunity. Like we mostly talk on the opportunity side, but we not so many talk on the risk side and how to prevent these risks. So I believe this is gonna be a really good discussion at the next part. So now we've been explored the mindset, business need, the leadership style. So now I think let's get into a practical adoption here. So before you scale AI, you also said that you need to make sure it's safe, not just technically, but also ethically and legally as well. So let's talk about what a solid risk-aware strategy is going to look like. So what framework do you use to conduct an AI risk assessment at the outset?
So for me, I treat AI just like another tool, effectively. So
Yes.
so when you do risk assessment, right, there are multiple things to consider, and there are usually companies have to be compliant with a bunch of different rules and frameworks. So like PCI or GDPR or all these things. And those frameworks actually are useful because, yes, there are policies and you have to comply to them, but they kind of give you a hint about, okay, this is what's important. At the end of the day, what I like to do is that there is this framework called NIST. NIST has different frameworks for dealing with risk and compliance. And for me, all the frameworks that policies that usually governments create, like GDPR and even PCI to some extent, and other framework, usually you can use some of the NIST framework as the kind of the foundation for them. If you have a NIST framework that you can prove that you comply with, then most likely it means that you are complying with all the other things. Or at least at a high percentage of all the other things. So I've been always a proponent of using some of the NIST framework as a way to set that foundation, so that even in the absence of strong regulation over something, you have a framework effectively that you feel good about. If you do this, you should be okay. And so NIST in particular has a NIST AI risk management framework, the AI RMF, which can be useful for that purpose, in addition to the overall other framework that NIST has been providing. So for me, that would be there are multiple ones that exist, but I've always been a proponent of NIST because I feel like a lot of the legislation tend to be derived from the NIST framework anyway. So use that as a foundation to then be able to comply with other policies and in some other ones.
I can see. Yes. Why? Because why I'm bringing the question of framework here is because, so as you mentioned that different framework gonna be used for different goals, right? For example, this problem is better to apply this framework. That problem is better to apply that framework. And currently we having a few debates because there's still no radical framework when we're talking about evaluating AI performance. So I'm just bringing this up, but a few months ago, like Apple released a paper debates that whether these LM models are truly capable of reasoning or they are just like incredibly good at repeating learned patterns. And the research of Apple saying that these models are not really reason and they just do some fancy pattern matching. But for some other expert, like they have pushback and they argue that the Apple research team not yet use adequate hardware or methodology, so there's still flaws in that result. And but after all, it doesn't. I think it's still not really matter who is right or wrong because AI is still a black box here. And then the thing it shows most clearly is a major gap in how we evaluate AI true reasoning, their capability and their performance as well. Even top researchers admit that we lack a great framework to define what's real reasoning look like or what is an effective AI model going to be look like. So yeah, I think I'm just going to bring this up because it highlights the blind spot that still exists with this technology and why executive level should be very careful when adopting these emerging tech. So yeah, now
Yeah,
it's come down to, yeah.
I mean, I agree with that. And not only that, but it's funny to see, right? Yeah, because it's a technology that was obviously created by software engineers and data scientists and other engineering functions. But when you probe about, especially regarding LLMs, large language models, about how it works, because you understand at small scale how it works, right? That's fairly easy, right? Yeah, the goal is not to think or anything; it's to predict. It's a predictor. It just predicts what should be next. So it's a forecasting tool, effectively. But it's funny that at small scale they understand exactly what's happening. But the fact that now at large scale it's so good at doing things, they cannot explain that. So it's kind of that there's a scale aspect that makes it so much better as a tool, but it cannot confidently say this is why at scale so much better versus how it works at the small scale. I agree with that too. I think that ultimately for me, it almost doesn't matter. Right? If there is value, there is value. And I think the risk is what problematic because there are clear risks, like to Apple's point, right? If there is no real reasoning, which I kind of agree with in some way, because at least the way I know about LLMs, there is no reasoning, right? There is no right or wrong. There is, I'm going to tell you what you want to hear. So I think in that standpoint, obviously there is risk involved to that. Not even the risk from, I would say, from the tool itself. It's almost like the risk of, well, what are you feeding to the tool? What is the training data that you're feeding? Like the quality of the training data? What is the prompt, the input that you're feeding into the tool to get the result? All that is very based on these two things. Actually, what we determine is that the model are more likely to hallucinate if they have the wrong training data or if they have the wrong prompt, effectively. So even just these two things, which you fully control the training data you feed into the LLM, you fully control the prompt. Even controlling that risk related to these two things, not even the tool itself, is already a challenge for a lot of companies. Because let's be clear, like a lot of companies have a lot of data, but those data sets are not clean. It doesn't matter where you go, it's not clean. So even cleaning up the data so that it can be used to train your LLM is a very big challenge for a lot of companies. Because if you don't do that, your LLMs are more likely to hallucinate. and giving you the wrong
Yes.
answer and having an impact on your business. So there are all kinds of things that doesn't make it easy. Like people say, oh, we use AI. It's like, but a lot of companies are still in the pilot phase at the small scale because they cannot feed the data at a large scale enough, the clean data at a large scale enough so that they can actually get better or proper results at a large scale. If that makes sense.
Yes. It comes down to the execution, right? We've been talking about the
Mm-hmm.
risks, the opportunities, and now we've just tapped into the execution right there about how organizations should have their infrastructure ready to adopt these AI initiatives, and data, to have the data clean is one of the most important thing, as you mentioned. So, okay, when we're talking about execution, and there must be the people who behind it to drive it, right? So who are the key people you would bring together to guide your AI initiatives, and how often should these groups meet together? Because when we deploying something, we keep gotta always tracking it, and especially for the AI technology, I think that we still need to track the output of AI deployment as much as we can because this technology is still new. So yeah, who are the key people you bring together to guide your AI initiatives, and how often these groups meet to stay effective while we roll out?
So there are definitely a lot of people that you need to include, right, in this kind of AI steering committees. Executive leadership, obviously, or
Yes,
the own delivering for their own the company effectively. So and making sure the company is doing the right thing. And as I mentioned at the beginning, like AI is at the level that every company should care. It's not just on the side project that you do. Is that that's something that companies are expected to utilize at the highest level. So executive leadership has to be involved. Then part of the risk aspect, obviously having legal and compliance, like legal counsel involved, I think is very important, right? So because there's a lot of changes, obviously, in terms of regulatory and legal frameworks that are very involving. So GDPR, the AI Act, and so on. So I think that they need to be involved as well, because what was good yesterday may not be good tomorrow, for sure. Security and IT, right? And make sure that because depending if you are building your own LLMs or if you're reusing LLMs that are available to you, no matter what, these systems need to be secured and resilient, right? In different ways. We have seen effectively bad actors polluting the exposed LLMs. So nobody's just like for everything else, like your bad actors try to bring down websites all the time and do all kind of crazy stuff and hack into them, like same thing with the AIs, Gen AIs. Same thing's happening
yes,
there. Gen AI is no different. And then you have obviously AI and machine learning technical experts, so the people that actually know what it means to have an LLM, what it means to have machine learning models, so that they can really provide that notion of feasibility, how do we architect it, and they can raise some of the risk as well for other legal risk and security risk, so that other teams can better un- understand how to mitigate those. Uh,
mm-hmm.
there is a thing about ethics and risk management. So it's a little bit different from legal, right? Because are we doing the right thing as a company from an ethics standpoint, right? You're making sure that, for example, there's been a lot of talk about that where AI like favoring like white people over black people. This notion like your AI like effectively just amplifying the issues we have in our society already instead of promoting fairness. And obviously we don't want to be part of that problem, right? As a company, we want to promote fairness. We want to promote accountability, transparency, and we want to be responsible as a company from in the society. So we don't want to, even accidentally, we want to be careful not to build in stereotypes inside the AI, for example. That would be bad. So they need to be involved. I would say product experts, right? Because I mentioned that AI is just a tool. So what's important is more to find the business value or the product value, the customer value where we believe AI can be a good tool to provide value. So obviously product managers, domain experts that can say, oh yeah, we have these big points, 10 points here. Can AI help with that? Yes. Okay, great. Let's see how we can do that. So for me, these are the people that need to be involved, which is a big list. You could argue it's a lot of people in the company that need to be involved in that. But that's the way it has to be, right? Yeah, because of all the consideration about the tool. And then how often should they meet? Well, that's an interesting question because it depends the maturity of the organization in adopting AI, right? So if you are just getting started, you don't even know what you're doing yet. Obviously, you want to meet more often, right? So I don't know, weekly or bi-weekly, to really get that going effectively. Once you are active implementation, then maybe you can meet more like monthly, and that you're just to check, okay, because usually you have a tiger team or some other team that starts going at it and implement it on a day-to-day basis, and then you want the steering committee to meet once a month to say, okay, how is it going? Is it giving us the value that we expect? Do we need to look at something else, like this kind of thing? And then once you have something in the operation, like it's already implemented, it's already there, then yeah, it could be quarterly. Now the problem with the AI is because it's as you mentioned, it's a changing thing. New tools all the time, better LLMs all the time, all these kind of things. The ability to reconsider the opportunities of using AI, I think is very valid. So at least once a quarter, you really want to do that. If you really want to reassess, okay, based on the new tools and everything, can
Mhm.
we look back at our strategy and how we can best utilize AI and the risk associated with them?
Yes, very actionable input from you here. Okay, so when we talking about leveraging AI and adopting AI, you mentioned one thing earlier that we gotta ensure that the tools our employers or our key person who are using has to be safe. The AI tool that our key person has to be safe so that they can move things easier and going forward because they got insured, they got backed, not so risky when using these tools. I have a question that how do you like building those safety into those tools? Like, did you add a layers, like some technical thing, like you add a risk prevent layers, or you work on some kind of framework to govern the usage of the employees on these tools, or you work on training? Yeah, I'm
Okay.
just wondering how you ensure that safety.
Yeah, it depends on the tool. The training aspect, interestingly, I don't think the training aspect is specific to AI per se. There is a lot of training that we do, but they are like the training that we usually do at the company level is that don't do anything stupid. So like don't open an email that's from an unknown party and open the attachment of the email, for example. Beware of you're getting a text from your CEO asking you to do something. Maybe that's wrong. You should think about twice about that. So I think it's the same thing with AI. Is that what don't do anything stupid with it? Like don't feed, for example, proprietary customer information into that. That seems to
Mm-hmm.
make sense. So there is some training aspect, uh, but I think, as I mentioned at the beginning, it's mostly making sure that we have the right administration capabilities over the tool. So be able, for example, that people can access the tool in a way that's fully vetted. So, for example, with single sign-on or things like that, so that we can monitor access, but also we can decide, oh, this person should have access, but also when that person is not with the company anymore, we can remove access very easily. Right? That's an easy thing to do, but but also we need to vet because something, all these tools that we are using come from different companies. And what is interesting from a compliance standpoint is that for you to be compliant with whatever policy are there, right? It's not just you that has to be compliant with these policies. Is that any tool, any company that you are doing business with also need to comply with the same policies. So for example, if your company has to be PCI compliant, right? It means that effectively anything that your tool that you are using from a payment aspect need to be PCI compliant, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, right? So it's not just you, it's everything that you are using needs to be PCI compliant. So the point there is that, every company nowadays have to be compliant with something. Every kind of company orders have a certain level of risk they are willing to assume, and there are frameworks associated to measure, to understand that risk and deal with that risk. Well, that means that for any tool that we want to use, we need to assess if those tools, the companies creating those tools, have the same level of compliance or risk management as we do. If they don't, that's a problem. And that's where the change between startup versus big companies usually or it depends on the market as well. It differs because it depends on your risk factor and what you expect to be your risk, how risk adverse you are and what framework, how you're assessing that, and then making sure that all these other tools are matching to your level of expectation regarding risk and compliance. So these are the kind of vetting you have to do anytime you use a new tool, no matter what, right? Because otherwise, it doesn't matter if you are compliant with something. If you are using tools that are not compliant with it, then effectively you are not compliant.
Yes,
So
yes,
that's something to consider for sure.
yes, yes. So after we evaluating, ensure your platform, your tools, your infrastructure is safe and secure enough to scale up, we come to deployment. So how do you prioritize the AI opportunities that deliver the best business outcome or the highest ROI? Because there's so many use cases we can apply in the business, right? So which one you should prioritize? How do you prioritize them?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a good question. For me, it's not just about ROI. The difference with AI versus potential other tools that we have seen before is that there's a clear risk and safety component to that. So I think safety is critical there. So it's not just about ROI, but also looking at safety as a major consideration because AI hallucinates. Right, so we already mentioned that. For example, using AI for internal use cases is much safer than exposing AI directly to your customer for all kind of reasons, both from a brand aspect, from a security aspect, from all kind of aspects. So if companies are starting with AI, like using AI internally, it's much safer than using AI exposed in the external fashion. And so, for example, what I've done in multiple companies now is more pushing for this internal facing use cases. So finding this highest ROI, but for internal use
Mm-hmm.
and see can we use AI for those versus before going and exposing things from the external fashion. So the other thing to consider is that don't forget we are dealing with people. And if you tell people now with AI, your job will change completely. You are going to do a different job altogether. That's not going to resonate well at first. So instead, no, you want to see how you can slide AI into your existing process. Right? So instead of replacing fully, like, say, oh, well, this person job can just be done totally with AI now, and then the person just need to push buttons to make that happen. Instead of doing that, say, well, what is the most critical aspect of that job that is more time consuming? It's not the critical aspect of it. It's more like where that person is spending the most time in that process. Can we take that and add AI into that? Right. So for me is the best case scenario because one, it makes that person more productive. Two, as far as the other person say, great, I have a tool that's helping me versus trying to replace me. So it's a much easier conversation. But also usually you have more value because if the employee is against the tool, then it doesn't matter how good the tool is. It's never going to be used well. Right, so I think it's easier to kind of insert AI in small ways into your existing way of doing things, learn from it, and then you start expanding its use where you see fit. Right, it's going
Mm-hmm.
to be a much better approach than trying to do a big bang things like we're going to replace that team entirely with AI. It's like that's not going to work. So even internal use case, you have to be careful in how you introduce AI into the mix.
So I would say start small. Internal is ideal and learn from it, measure it, and then scale up when it's time. So you've been working on the large scale adoption before. What other patterns have you seen for integrating AI outputs into day-to-day decision making? Are there any alarming?
Yes, definitely. So we talk about that. AI lies, effectively, right? AI has no concept of truth. AI hallucinates, and it's funny how we don't call them bugs, we call them hallucinations because they are not bugs, they are expected by design. There are ways to reduce that, but it can still happen no matter what you do on the quality of the input. So I think it's important to always critically review the output of AI. And what that means is that that's why it's so much easier to use it in an internal facing way, because usually in the internal use cases, right, you have somebody that's going to get the output of the AI and can say, oh, yeah, this is great. Oh, no, this is wrong. But I think it's important to make sure that that person knows that your AI can make mistakes and therefore that they should be critical. They should be reviewing critically the output of the AI. Even when you give output directly to customers, you will see that companies put, this is AI generated. Now, be careful about be
Yeah.
careful about the output of it for the same reason. You try to do your best to prevent issues, but issues can happen just because of the nature of the tool. And so I think being critical of the output actually is to be careful. I think the best way to do that is by effectively having what we call man in the middle. Right? So effectively, you are keeping the human in the loop in reviewing the output of AI. That's the safest way by far. There are other techniques that you can use to mitigate issues without having human involved, but by far having a
Mhm.
human critically assessing the output is the best way.
I see. So to prevent all of the risk happens, I believe that you're also expert in this to have the plan is well planned to reduce the risk happen as much as possible. So maybe share with the audience your playbook here. Maybe outline your key phase of your AI pilot program and the criteria you use to assess this, then progresses further.
Like I say, AI is a tool and it's a special kind of tool, but it's not that different from how you should do integrated tool in the company, right? So the first things about AI is one is ideation and use case selection. We talk about that a lot about why, where should we use AI? Where is the biggest value? Where is it the safest? As well as a way to learn and iterate on. So that's number one. Two is feasibility assessment and design. So is it even possible to use AI for these use cases? Like, what are the different ways, but also the opportunities? Is it the best use case for AI? So there
Mm-hmm.
is a
Mm-hmm.
assessment about, the feasibility aspect because there could be costs as well, right? And, are the costs not even the productivity again? Now, three, I will say is prototype development. So be able to develop a prototype with it, right? And lots of companies, that's where they are stuck in. So develop a prototype, showcase it. Four is more of a control pilot deployment, right? So, okay, you have a prototype, then you create a MVP. Great. Now you have an MVP. Let's deploy that in a very controlled way. And what I mean control is more in terms of environment, making sure that that environment is very secure and potentially isolated as much as possible, but also that even from how you expose it to internally or externally, that you do that in a limited fashion, right? And then number five is when you scale up. You scale up, or you know what, it's not working. In any of these phases, right, there is an exit point, which is that, it's not working. Let's not do that. So you want to be very clear, but in any cases, like, there is a point where you could say, okay, great, it's working well. We should scale it up. Now, in terms of how you evaluate if it's working or not, right? There is a business value aspect. But does it reduce costs? Does it increase revenue? Does it boost productivity? Um, there is a cost aspect too, right? Because it provides benefits, but it's not for free, never for free. that ROI, that business value is something to consider. The model performance itself, like how good is it in delivering the value that you want? And usually that's where you have a lot of iteration on, because usually at first it's not very good, and then you keep on iterating and iterating and iterating to improve the business value and the model performance to deliver that business value. Then there is that fairness and ethics aspect. Is like, is it fair? Does it create any bias across demographic groups? Is it transparent? Transparency is a big issue, right? When you think that the tool itself is a black box. AI by itself is a big black box, as you mentioned. While being transparent about it is weird, right? So because it cannot tell you why it's generating some of these values. There is a security and privacy thing that you need to validate. Is it compliant with GDPR? Or is it, are we encrypting data? Are we providing proper access control? Does it fit into our operational footprint? Can we integrate it with ease in our current environment? Can we monitor it? These kind of things. At the end of the day, what's more important for a company, it doesn't matter if it has business value or not. Almost it's like, do our stakeholders feel confident, trust it, right? Because you can do all the right thing, and it could be working wonderfully, but let's say your executive leadership doesn't believe in it, or your investors like, no, this is fishy, like you should not use that. Then it doesn't matter how good it is, it's not the right use of AI.
Yes, I see. There's still a point where the executive level, the senior level, or the management level get too high with it, and they want something that even not necessary to the business at some point. I want this, I want that, I want an AI, just like everyone. But yeah, as we said, if your data is not yet clean or your organization, your culture is not ready with that, you still need to work on that first. But these approach of yours, you just broken down into very clear steps and give us some really clear criteria to assess the progress of it. But do you think it's different between this approach is different between a corporate in a more corporate landscape and in a startup landscape? Like, I believe it would be different, but in
Yes, it
different
is.
in what way?
Well, ultimately, it's a question of risk. Big companies are more risk adverse
I see.
than small companies, right? Than
Mm-hmm.
startups. But mostly
Mm-hmm.
because they have more to lose, to be honest. It's not because, one is more of a cowboy than the other. It's more the fact you're a big company, you have customers, you have revenue, and you don't want to lose those, because of, some issues introduced by the tools. And as a result, big companies usually require a lot more of, I call them bells and whistles to be put in place, even in order to evaluate AI use cases. Now, I mentioned some ways to try to counter that by trying to very limit the scope of how you evaluate AI use cases. But still, like usually big companies have more of that need to have, we cannot have our data going anywhere in the cloud in some other tool, some other companies, or other things that we need to build our own LLM, or we need to contract the LLM so that it can only run in our environment and nowhere else, or things like that. Right? So it depends on the company, but ultimately big companies are more risk averse. Small companies are more likely to just take whatever is off the shelves, start playing with it,
Yes.
there is less to lose because maybe they have less customers, maybe so they are more likely to move faster, to be more agile, because there's more of that appetite for risk. And they can take appropriate shortcut. I'm not saying that they should take a lot of shortcut, but they can take some shortcut where they say, yeah, this is not as important for us. Therefore, we can use off-the-shelf tools. We have less to comply with in the first place. Therefore, we can find more companies that have LLM models and GenAI models that match our level of compliance. And therefore, we can effectively make more data use of this AI tool faster and explain faster because we have less need to put everything in the box effectively. So I think that's the difference for me.
Yeah. So after you talk with leaders in different company size, different industry as well, so what oversight you see these level make that can negatively affect or derail an AI deployment program?
So not surprisingly, because I think we have been talking about that, right?
You're right.
I want to make it clear. AI is a tool, right? It's not an end by itself, right? I know there's a lot of companies that are getting creative saying, we do AI. Great. That doesn't deliver value. That's not a product. So AI is a tool. And therefore, for me, if you fail to define a clear, measurable problem that aligns with your business objectives for using AI,
Mm-hmm.
then you're going to fail. So you need to define that use case that we keep on mentioning, that clear, measurable use case that you can
Yep.
use AI for, that match, that provide business value. So if it doesn't provide business value, then why do you care? So you really want to deliver that business value, but you also want to do it in a safe way. Meaning that you're maybe starting small, maybe internal use cases where you can still deliver business value, usually cost reduction, because now you have, and then you can expand on. So I would say I've seen a lot of companies failing because they try to buy too much at once. Right? I'm a big proponent of iterating. Right? So start small, grow, learn, grow, and so on. So I think that's, for me, that's critical, but start on actual real problems we are trying to solve.
I know this is the final question, but it's still good to see your experience, your project you've done before, the initiative that you've tried before. So could you share some example where your AI deployment initiative boost optimization or cut costs or maybe drive new revenue stream for an organization for our audience here, listen to and take a lesson from it?
Sure. I mean, there is AI and AI. So at TripAdvisor and Wayfair, for example, we did use a lot of machine learning to do like sorting of results, do recommendations. These are very common use cases of machine learning and AI from that standpoint. The other thing that at OneEuro, we started using GenAI, for example, for predicting growth, business growth, right? As a way to better understand where we should go, where we expect to grow as a business. So I think that was very good for that. We also played, at the time I was there, we'd be able to structure unstructured data. So be able to take a lot of data that we have that doesn't have any structure to them, like it's like big blobs of text, and be able to find structure within that so that we can create labels, tags, and other things that not only we can show that to the user, so, oh, this station is safe, or this station has bathroom. Even so, we don't get that kind of data per se, but we can, with AI, we can extract that kind of information in a structured manner. Then from that, then it enables you, once you have that structured manner, to be able, for users to be able to search for that data. So, well, I want only to go from the safe station. Okay, great. Then look for the safe tag that we extracted through GenAI and go from there. So that's something that for me I found very interesting there, is that because like I said, one who had a lot of very unstructured data coming from all kind of different places, and be able to then find structure within that and find little bits of places that then you can search on or you can showcase in an easy way. I think for me was very interesting. Cambridge Mobile Telematics, one project I'm not part of. I'm the foundation of that, but so Cambridge Mobile Telematics, our whole mission is to make drivers safer, or the road safer, meaning that as a driver, you are safer as a driver, therefore you make every road safer by being safer. And I think a lot of that is not just giving you data about how well you're driving, but it's giving you insights, be able to engage with you, to be able to give you like feedback in a way that's relevant for you, and you can actually do something about actionable feedback that makes sense for you. And I think that GenAI is a very good tool for that.
Wow, exciting. I'll catch up on your LinkedIn and we'll see if you share something on LinkedIn about this, if this product gonna be launched or some
Oh,
news
it's
about
already
it.
launched. It's an app called Cambridge Mobile Telematics. A lot of our customers, like our insurance companies, but we also have our own products that are available for any user to download. So that particular app is called Road Club, and And the Road Club does that. So it collects your driving data, yes, and that is using the technology that my team owns, but then tries to make it very actionable for you, right? The whole point with Road Club as a product is to engage with the driver and make them safer, because that's our company mission. Ultimately, that's what we care about. If we believe that if we make it the road safer, and it's less accidents, obviously less death, it's less bad thing in the world, and we can live in a better world as a result.
Wow. I think there's a lot of demand in the market for this application, right? Because currently I've seen so many, accidents regarding EVs, and lots of things happen in these. And this would be not just to change the way how people are going to drive safely, but, in a better for the society as a whole. And okay, so I think that's pretty much of the podcast today. And Arnold, thank you so much for walking us through what it really takes to scale AI safely. You start from frameworks, then you start to your real life experience and projects, which is really insightful and really rich to our audience here. So before we ending the show, are there any final messages that you would like to send?
People should feel free to follow me on LinkedIn. That's where I post about all my contributions in different shape or form. Cambridge Mobile Telematics as well is hiring. I just want to mention it in passing, because if people are interested in working in an AI first company, that's CMT is a fantastic company to work for. So I feel very lucky from that standpoint. And then, just wanted to make sure actually, I collaborated in the book actually that just went out a couple of days ago, called the AI Advantage. So excited about that as well. I'm one of the created a chapter within the book, but still I could say
Wow.
that I'm an author, and so that book is now out. So people should
Wow.
feel free to check it out.
Yes. Please follow Arnaud Lucas on LinkedIn, guys. I don't know, but I really love the vibe of your LinkedIn. I don't know, it brought a professor vibe at some
I'm not a
point.
professor.
Yeah, right? Oh my god. We can tell, we can tell.
My wife is a teacher, but I'm not. Trust me, I'm not a teacher.
But the way you deliver, the way you talk, you share, is very structural, And I think that's kind of characteristic that every teacher should have, because deliver something in a structurized way, in a resonated and understandable way, is still a tough thing. But you make it really well with this podcast. And okay, I think we talk a bit too much, but okay, guys, this is Control Shifter with Arnold. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next episodes.